discuss, as usual, things about dating and relationships. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about tonight, and we'll see where the conversation goes, but one of the things I wanted to talk about tonight is extraordinary relationships or soulmate relationships. So many people that I talk to have told me they don't believe in soulmates. But when I throw out the term extraordinary relationship, yeah, we're good. We're fine with that. And in my mind, it's one and the same. But and I'm just going to toss this question out early and see where we go. And I may toss it out again a little bit later. But how many of you believe in soulmate relationships? Hey, Addie, thanks for joining in. Happy Monday. Yeah, how about those Chiefs? That was an awesome game. And I was just getting sidetracked here a little bit. Before coming on air, I just watched a video of an interview with a young man that caused the 15-yard penalty at the end of the game, and he was 22 years old. Think about the pressure that he was under in that moment to try to stop Patrick Mahomes. It was, I feel so sorry for him, and he had a teammate standing next to him that was kind of shielding him from questions. But can you imagine being 22 years old and being in that big a game and that in that kind of situation, and then making a mistake and it costing the team the championship? I just can't imagine the pressure that some of these young men are under. So anyway, back to dating and relationships. It's Addie says, yes, I'm empathetic. Felt so bad for him. I believe in them. I've been. Oh, she's talking about soulmate relationships. I believe in them. I've seen beautiful relationships. I know they are around. Absolutely. And I totally agree. And I do talk to a number of people, and most of them are widows that will tell me that they've been in a soulmate relationship, that they've been in extraordinary relationships, or had an extraordinary relationship with their late spouse. And I find that more often with widows than I do with divorcees. And obviously, if you're divorced, that's generally a sign that the relationship was not a soulmate relationship. And that's really what I'm here to try to prevent any of you from doing again, is to get into a relationship only to get divorced later. Because the statistics are even worse for second and third and fourth marriages. They say that statistically, the numbers come from the Census Bureau, and it when you look at the numbers, about 40% of first marriages fail. But as you get into second marriages, about 63% fail. Third marriages, about 71 or 72% fail. And then the number goes up from there till it gets to be about a 90, 93, 94, 95% failure rate. Well, why is that? And I totally believe that it's because we're not paying attention. We're, number one. Number two, we're not crystal clear about what we want in a relationship. Number three, we rush back in before we're ready, before we're emotionally ready. It takes time, even in a dating situation. When you leave a relationship, and even if it's only for a few months, it takes a little bit of time to get your head back about you, to figure out what went wrong, to figure out what you did right, what you did wrong, what they did right, what they did wrong. And it's not a matter of pointing fingers. It's not a matter of saying, oh, they're all to blame. It's a matter of analyzing and saying, okay, this is what happened. This is how things went down. What can I do better next time? And when you're looking for an extraordinary relationship, it takes a lot of learning. It takes a lot of experience to, I mean, unless you're just absolutely doggone lucky to just fall into that kind of relationship, it takes some effort to it takes some effort to find that type of relationship. Hey, Liz, thanks for joining in. Liz says, I do believe, and I did have that specialness. Confirmation came again from my 37-year-old son when we were talking about the loss of his dad. He said he wanted to have a relationship like my husband and I had. So my must-haves and deal breakers are very specific. I'm not trying to replace him, but I do know what is good. Absolutely, that's awesome, and it's and that's another big thing, Liz, that you don't realize, or most of us don't realize, how much our children pay attention to what we're doing. And if we're in revolving door relationships where you break up, get back together, break up, get back together, break up, get back together, or you're cycling a lot of people through, it doesn't set up a good image for your children on how to have a great relationship. I firmly believe that we shouldn't be bringing the the boyfriend or girlfriend du jour home too quickly. I think we should wait at least 6 months. We should date 6 months before we even start thinking about bringing them home and introducing them to family. We can introduce them to some friends, but and maybe some of your closest friends, but I firmly believe that taking time and getting to know someone, getting to see if this is, or learning to see if this is going to be a relationship that has any possibilities. And it takes at least 30 days to figure out whether you're going to, this is somebody you want to stick with a little bit longer. And Liz brought up a couple of great points, and it comes in setting boundaries for yourself. And that's having your must-have and your deal-breaker list. You're paying attention, Liz. I'm proud of you. But those are important things to have, because it keeps you focused on what's important to you when you start dating somebody new and things look and feel pretty good. And the new relationships are always awesome. They're somebody new. It's exciting. You're not alone. You got somebody to talk to. You've got somebody to do things with. But without those lists, your must-have and your deal-breaker list, you can very quickly get sucked down into a relationship that truly isn't right for you, or truly won't be the long-term relationship you're looking for. And that's why it's so important to be prepared. That's why it's so important to have these lists, so you can step back from the infatuation and raging hormones. I've got a glare on my lights, on my lenses today. So I apologize, and also, if I just give me a quick thumbs up or thumbs down if the reception is good tonight. Last week we had a couple of issues with connectivity, so if you're hearing me okay, just say yes, type yes in the chat box, and if I'm not breaking up too much for you. And so it's important as you're looking for your soulmate relationship, and I firmly believe in soulmates. It wasn't up until about, I was in my early 50s. Hey Kathy, thanks for joining in. Thanks for the thumbs up, and Addie, thanks for the all is good. Up until about my early 50s, I didn't believe in soulmates. And it wasn't until I met a particular person that taught me what what it, she taught me what extraordinary communication was like. She taught me what what true love was actually like. Basically agape love. And there's another term that I'm drawing a blank on, but it wasn't until I had this type of relationship that we could talk about anything and everything. And there were a couple of times she lined me out. There was a couple, for doing or saying something. And while it may have hurt or stung at the time, it made the relationship stronger because I knew she was setting boundaries, and I was respectful of those boundaries. And I would do the same thing. But it was a relationship that had such a deep impact on me that I came to recognize what the impact of a soulmate relationship can have on our lives. She was there to enhance me, and I was there to enhance her, and I did things differently because of that. Hey, Phil, thanks for joining in, and glad you're here. Glad you can hear everything okay. So but up until that point, I didn't believe it was possible because I grew up in a very dysfunctional household. I had a very dysfunctional marriage. And part of the reason I had a dysfunctional marriage is because I didn't know any better. I grew up in a dysfunctional household, and I thought that I was, and I think I was doing much better than my parents did, but it was still dysfunctional. And it still had a lot of problems. Obviously, because I'm divorced, we can see that it didn't work. And I can go back to the first 30 days that I was dating my my future ex-wife, that there were red flags. There were things that were there that in our dating life that just were not acceptable. But because it was new, it was exciting, it was somebody to be with, we just kept dating, and one thing led to another, and I never broke it off. I never recognized that I should have broken it off. And it's primarily because of the infatuation and raging hormones involved. And I'm not talking about sex when I'm talking about raging hormones. There are hormones. There's oxytocin, there's dopamine, there's serotonin, there's what's the other one? But it's a cocktail of hormones that cause us to be attracted to people, and for whatever reason. And it doesn't mean that you can't be attracted to them. But this cocktail can cause us to make some poor decisions. We have to make sure that we have all of our must-haves and none of our deal breakers. And this cocktail of hormones can cause us to overlook many of the things that we normally wouldn't accept in a relationship. And it's so important to pay attention to those things. And that's why I'm such a huge proponent on having your must-have and your deal breaker list. Because those are the things, those are the tools that you have in your tool belt or your toolbox that allow you to step back from the infatuation and raging hormones and say, hey, listen, does he have this and this and this? Or does she display any of the deal breakers on my list? Or am I seeing any red flags? And those are and then you can step back into the infatuation. But infatuation it puts blinders on us, and we either willingly or unwillingly ignore the problems that we see early on. And it's these problems early on that cause us to have problems in the relationship later on. It all may be neat and smooth and cool and fine in all respects up front, but later on, these red flags, these deal breakers are going to rear their ugly head, and you're going to say, oh man, I've just spent 2 years, 5 years, I've just wasted all this time in the wrong relationship. And the point here is that when you're paying attention, when you're dating intentionally, you'll start to recognize that no, this isn't the relationship that I truly want. And the sooner you can exit those, the sooner you can recognize that this isn't the relationship you want or a relationship that you want, the sooner you can move on and continue your search. And, and I don't, dating can be hard, but it's only as hard as we make it. It's something that if you want to be in that extraordinary relationship, if you want to be with your soulmate, it's going to take time. And like I said, I think it was last week in talking about setting up expectations, you have to expect to date more than 4 or 5 or 6 people to find your soulmate. It's just the way things are. We have so many more opportunities to meet people today than we did 40 or 50 years ago. For the most part, when you got married 40 or 50 years ago, you were marrying somebody from your hometown. In general, you lived close to each other. You grew up close to each other. In general, and at least that let me reframe that, because I grew up in a small town, and so you knew a good number of the people in the area. So now, if you grew up in the Kansas City area or in a big city, odds are you probably still married somebody that was within 10 or 20 or 30 miles away. You just didn't grow up next to them. But people continually complain today that the dating is so hard. Well, we make it harder than it has to be. We make mistakes, and we all make mistakes when it comes to dating, and we have to accept, okay, I screwed up here. But again, that's why I encourage you to build out your must-have list, your deal breaker list, and your must-have list should be a dynamic list. As you date somebody, you'll discover, hey, I really like that characteristic. I really like that trait in a person, and add that to your list. Or if you find something that you absolutely don't like, says, nope, I don't want that in my next relationship. And unfortunately, when we start dating, we haven't, after a divorce or after the death of a spouse, we start dating and we're not crystal clear. We had number one on what we want, but number two, we haven't taken time to heal from the loss of our last relationship. And I've worked with some people that are serial monogamous, and that means that they'll jump from one relationship to the next, to the next, to the next. They may spend 2 or 3 years with somebody, but when they break up, within 2 or 3 weeks or a month, they're back in another relationship. And it's not that they've had somebody in the wings waiting. It's just they'll go out and find somebody to be with, because they don't, number one, want to be alone, but number two, they don't take the time to heal and grieve the loss of that relationship. So consequently, what they're doing is dragging all the baggage from these past relationships forward into the next one. And it makes them a very, very, very difficult person to date, because they have all of this stuff and they generally don't recognize that they're carrying all this baggage. They say, oh no, I'm fine. And when you really sit down and start peeling back the layers of the onion, so to speak, you start to see there's a lot of baggage there. There's a lot of hurt. There may be a lot of there are a lot of issues, maybe with self-esteem or self-confidence or any number of things. And a lot of this stuff can come from as far back as our childhood. And Addie says, I used to be a serial monogamist. Guilty. And I don't want to. Yeah, I'm glad you can admit that now, Addie. I'm glad that you've taken time to work on yourself, and Addie and I have had conversations and done some work together. Addie's been one of my students in Dating Made Simple Academy, and she's come a long way. I've watched her and talked with her, and in fact, I hope you don't mind, but I actually Addie last week sent after the show sent me her online dating profile, and we did some work on it, and hopefully that's going to improve some of her results online. And thank you. And Addie says, "Yep, highly suggest the Academy." And it really is a great program. And not to get too much into get too salesy here, but it's if you struggle at all with dating in today's world, it's a program that will take you through helping you get healthy. And I don't spend a lot of time on getting healthy, because that's some work that you really need to do on your own. But there are some key tips in there that I give you. And then we also define what a soulmate is. And a soulmate is that person that comes into your life that you'll have so much in common with. It's not going to mean that everything is going to be perfectly aligned. That we'd be dating ourselves, and that's not necessarily what we want to do. But we want somebody that we can develop an intellectual connection with, a spiritual connection, an emotional connection, and a physical connection. And I'm not just talking about sex. There's physical appearance and physical attraction that need to come into play. I firmly believe that we should speak similar love languages. That's important. Because it allows us to connect and communicate on such a deeper level. When you speak similar love languages, it takes things to such another level in communication that it's almost undescribable in words how deep the connection becomes. And then obviously we want chemistry, and I'm not talking about the chemistry, the raging hormone type of chemistry, but there's a chemistry where your partner is the first one you want to talk to in the morning or wake up next to and say good morning, I love you. They're the person that you want to come home to at night and share your day. You want to find out what kind of day they've had and share those experiences. So we talk about all of those things, and we talk about in Dating Made Simple Academy, we go through there's actually 5 modules, and they cover a wide variety of everything from getting healthy to understanding communication and what to look for in communication, how to be a better communicator, how to even into writing your online profile or online creating an online dating profile. The photos that you use, the pictures, or the verbiage that you use, and I don't give you a lot of verbiage, but I give you a good description of how to lay out the profile. And as long as we're going down this rabbit hole, I'm dragging you down this rabbit hole. I've been online for about a month and a half, maybe 2 months, and it really is. Ladies, you complain about guys and the terrible profiles that you find online. And I'm finding the exact same thing from ladies right now. There are so many junk profiles out there. And from everything from wearing a mask as your primary profile picture, to artwork, to pets, to grandkids, as your primary picture. And it's just, what kind of impression are you trying to give? I haven't figured that out. Yes, you love your grandkids. Yes, you love your pets. Yes, you want to be safe with a mask, and but that should not be your primary picture. I, and ladies, you're going to love this one. I even came across a profile not too long ago, actually a couple of them, where the primary profile picture was the lady holding up her catch of the day. You know, so it goes both ways. And I'm not going to I'm not going to deny anybody the right to post the pictures that they want. But the idea for posting a picture should be you want somebody to see who you are. And the first impression you make with any profile is that first picture. And you want to put your best foot forward there. And let's see, let me catch up on a couple of comments here. Liz says, a friend gave us a card when we got married for better or worse through fishing season, hunting season, etc. It all worked because we made it work. Well, there's a lot of truth to that, Liz, and there are a lot of marriages out there that do survive, but they're not totally happy. Only about 50% of the marriages that survive, the first marriages that survive, are happy marriages. That means, and if you caught the numbers that I gave out earlier, about 60% of marriages, first marriages, survive. That means only about 30% of marriages are truly happy, healthy marriages. And I'm thrilled that you had a good one. But that means there's another 30% that are just going through the motions. I mean, how many of you have been with girlfriends or been out and overheard conversations about how terrible their husbands were, or how bitchy their wives were, or, whatever it is. And so there are still, even though people are married and stay, that 60% doesn't mean that they're all happy, healthy, awesome marriages. Hey, Kathy. And Kathy says, it is unusual that it's hard to find someone. Is it unusual that it's hard to find someone that I have chemistry with? No. And the reason I was so quick with that answer is because if it were easy, we'd all be with our soulmates, in just a couple of dates. And Kathy, it's a numbers game. And the person that you're looking for is and I use this illustration probably too much, but you're looking for that needle in a haystack. And what I find is too many people think that they should be dating, just should have to date 3 or 4 or 5 or maybe 6 people and find their soulmate. It takes time because you're looking, and especially later in life, because you've had life experiences. Your bar is, when you were 20 years old, your bar was down here. Your bar should be way up here now because of your life experiences, because of the things that you experienced, some of the toxic relationships you may have had, the issues that you had in your last marriage. And so all those things add up, and that makes it the next person needs to reach a higher level of attraction or competence, and it doesn't get any easier as we get older. But it doesn't. It can be simple, but it's not necessarily easy. But we don't have to make it harder than we have to. We just have to understand that, it's that the next person you date, the odds are is not the right one, but we're going to go and find out anyway. We're going to go on 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 dates, and when you start to see things that aren't working, that they're not a good fit for you, it's at that point you say, yeah, I'm just not feeling the connection. It's time to move on. And Liz says there was a lot of humor in our life, and that is such a good point. You have to be able to laugh together. You not only have to laugh at each other, you have to laugh with each other. You have to laugh at yourself. Addie says, I haven't found anyone. Addie says, I haven't found anyone either, Kathy. And so and I've been, and Kathy, don't feel bad. I've been divorced for 12 years and I still haven't found the right one. I've come close a couple of times, very close, but there was still something missing, and it was different for each relationship. For the most part, from my perspective, there are business things, or there are personality quirks, or things that cause us not to mesh. And we want to mesh because we want relationships, or we should be looking for relationships that enhance us, that make us better, that make us want to be better people. We should wake up in the morning and saying, I want to be the best person I could be for my partner. I want, and from time to time you ask, how can I make this relationship better? And just ask for one thing. Tell me one thing that I can do to make this relationship better. So in the grand scheme of things, do I believe in soulmates? Absolutely. And I firmly believe that we all have more than one soulmate. And to Liz's point, and I may have not touched on it, but I think Liz mentioned that she knows that it's not going to be the same as her first husband. You're absolutely right. You can have, especially for the widows that are listening, or widowers, you can have another extraordinary relationship. Because I believe all of us have more than one soulmate. It's just a matter of which one we find next. And the thing you have to remember is that each relationship is going to be different. Even though you connect, you find another soulmate or your second soulmate, it's not going to be the same relationship as you had originally. But the feelings will be the same, or maybe even better. You may have found a better soulmate, or it may be even better because you're more experienced at relationships now, and the things just seem to come together, and they seem to work. They seem to fit. So there's so many great aspects of soulmate or extraordinary relationships, yet most of us have never ever experienced that type of relationship. Excuse me. And that's one of the things that I try to bring to the table, is to make you aware that they're out there. It's a matter of taking time and not settling just because you might feel lonely today, or you're tired of being alone. There's a difference with being alone and being lonely. And we all get lonely from time to time. I know there are times that I would just love to have somebody around, but then I also turn around and say, yeah, I don't want to be with the wrong one. Being in a relationship, in the wrong relationship, you might as well be alone. Even when I look back at my marriage, there were times that I felt alone because we were not that well connected. And Phil says, I had a dynamic marriage with my best friend for 25 years. It was well worth the effort to find that special relationship. I lost her to cancer. I'm sorry, Phil, and I know that's hard. And I know it's been a little while now. I think we first started talking shortly after she had passed. And I've watched you progress, and I think you're 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 much more mature in your thought process now than you were a couple of years ago, and that just comes with time. And it comes with the healing and recovering from that loss. So, um, it's that's a tough loss. But Phil, there will be another woman out there for you. And Kathy says, "I definitely agree. I would rather be alone than with the wrong person. I've been widowed 5.5 years." And so you understand, Kathy, it's that's and I think being widowed is much tougher than being divorced, because I think in many cases, and not all, not every relationship was rainbows, butterflies, and unicorns, but I think the loss of a spouse is a totally different animal than getting divorced. I know a lot of people say that losing a spouse to cancer, to whatever, is so much easier because you don't have to see him again. You don't have to deal with him. Well, there's some truth to that, but there's also a loss that you have no control over, and there's nothing you can do or say to get someone back. There's nothing you can do to repair that relationship. Whereas if your ex is still alive, there's still a possibility that if they were a good person, you could still pull that relationship together. Not that it would be the wise thing to do. I don't want to try to make that assumption. We're all divorced for a reason, or for those of us that are divorced for a reason. And if we go back, generally that reason has not changed. So we have to be very careful about making amends with an ex or with a past spouse, because that you have the potential of jumping into a revolving door relationship. And I've been in a couple of those where, there was something just drawing me back in, but it wasn't enough to outweigh the negative aspects of those relationships. So each time in one relationship in particular, we got together 3 times. And the third time, and each time was progressively less or progressively shorter. And by the third time we got together, I think it was maybe 4 months, and it was over. And it's, so you have to be careful. It's so nice to think of past relationships and think of the good, the positive things, and think about, oh, we had such good times. We did this. We worked so well together here. But then you have to think about the other aspects of that relationship that weren't working. It may have been a spiritual aspect. It may have been some personality aspects that caused you to butt heads way too often. And whatever the reasons were, it may have been communication issues. And, all of these things combine to either make a great relationship or a toxic relationship. And it can be so tempting to just remember the good things of past relationships. Say, oh yeah, let's try to work this out. Let's see if we can't work something out. But the odds of that happening are slim to none, and slim left town. It's and the sad thing is, I talk to so many people that go through this process, and they break up for specific reasons, and they go back and they'll come out of it, and you can see a lot of this on Facebook, that these things, they circle around. The reason you broke up the first time is going to be the reason you break up the 6th time, the 10th time, the 12th time, whatever it is. So, once you break up, make that the end. So anyway, with that, I think we'll kind of wrap it up today. Unless you all have any other questions or thoughts or comments, I'd be happy to take those. But the whole idea of today's conversation is to help you think. If you don't believe in soulmates or extraordinary relationships, try thinking outside the box. Because if you don't like the term extraordinary, if you don't like the term soulmate, think of it as your last first kiss. Think of it as somebody that's going to enhance your life, however you want to think about it. But there is somebody out there that is going to knock your socks off, so to speak. And I don't mean sexually, but they're just going to overwhelm you with how well things work. You're going to look and say, wait, all these other relationships didn't work out because this is the one that I'm supposed to be in. And when you do find that extraordinary relationship, you're going to recognize that, holy smokes, that's why nothing else worked out, because this is what I've been looking for. This is what I've been waiting for. And the key is to wait for it. Hang on one second. Liz says, we celebrated our first kiss every day, our first kiss day every year. Awesome. That's cool. I like that. See, folks, there's a new celebration, the first kiss day. That's awesome. I love that. So the point here is that there are so many things to celebrate along the way. But it's important to find that right person. It's important not to settle. And in today's immediate gratification society, we tend to settle. And we tend to settle quickly because society tells us we need to be with somebody. We need to be with somebody now. That's not true. We don't need to be with anybody right now. We need to be with the right person. We need to be with that one that God wants us to be with. We need to be patient and we need to do our due diligence. We need to do our search. But when you find that person, you will know. And it's not going to take a long time to figure it out. I guarantee you that. But and a lot of it boils down to how much effort you want to put into it. If you want to have a date a month, that's fine. If you want to date 2 different people in a month, that's fine. But the more often you date, the more people you meet, the sooner you will find your soulmate. So anyway, with that, let's wrap it up and have a good night. We'll be back next week, or I'll be back next week. I hope you all are going to be back next week at the same time, same bat channel, same bat cave. And we'll talk about dating and relationships again. In the meantime, have a great and blessed week, everyone. I love you. Thanks for the great comments tonight and the great questions. And I will see you next Monday at 6 Central. And if you have any questions, shoot them to me. If you have any interest, if you have an interest in Dating Made Simple Academy, drop me a note or go to datingmadesimple.net, and you can check out the program there. In the meantime, have a great and blessed week, everyone. I'll see you next week. I love you guys.